Hey everybody, what's going on? If you're watching this, you're probably studying for the LSAT at some point. If you're taking it just a few days from now, I hope that you rock the LSAT. Last night, I did a Facebook Live in the LSAT Unplugged Facebook group. It was just over an hour, and I covered a few different areas. I covered last-minute LSAT test day prep. If you have just a few days remaining, I went over the 7 biggest LSAT test day mistakes. So if you want to check out the full replay of that Facebook Live, I will share the link with you here. It is in the LSAT Unplugged Facebook group. Just join that group. I'll approve your request and you can go check that out. I also have done several different videos on LSAT test day prep on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel. So I'll share the playlist containing all of those as well if you want to check them out. I tried to cover every single possible aspect of LSAT test day prep. But what I want to do today for those of you who did not have the chance to watch the Facebook Live last night, and for those of you who are not taking the March LSAT, but are instead going for June, July, and beyond, I wanted to share with you some thoughts on how to prepare over the next 2 to 3 months. And I hope that if you're taking it in June and July, you're not just starting off now, because in my opinion, honestly, 2 to 3 months isn't really enough time to reach your fullest potential. And that's not what most people think at first. When I started studying for the LSAT, I thought I could knock it out of the park in 2 to 3 months. But then I took my first diagnostic and I got a 152. And I had gone to an Ivy League undergrad. I thought I would go to a top 14 law school. And so that was really discouraging. In fact, it sent me into a bit of a depression for a while. And I took exam after exam after exam, and my scores did not go up. So I stayed in the low 150s for quite a while. It ended up taking me an entire year before I was able to beat this thing and achieve a 175 on test day. But I don't want it to take you quite that long. I find that in reality, it typically takes most people at least 5 to 6 months to reach their fullest potential. And people are retaking the LSAT more often than ever before. I used to see people taking it only 2 to 3 times at most, but now I see people taking it 4, 5, even 6 times, and that's perfectly fine. Law schools don't care. They don't average multiple LSAT scores. Any information you see on that is outdated, or it's law schools trying to give you this sense that they do a holistic review because it feels good to say that. It sounds good to hear it. But law school admissions is really primarily a numbers-driven game. And you can go on LSAT's website. There's an LSAT GPA calculator. You can play around with that and kind of see how you'll do with different LSAT scores, different GPAs. And of course, your GPA is probably fairly fixed by this point, but your LSAT score is not. And so to achieve your fullest potential, give yourself that 5 to 6 month timeline. If you are retaking, of course, you want to think about what you'll do differently next time around. You don't want to just do the same thing and keep taking exam after exam after exam. I recently taught an online LSAT class focused specifically on LSAT retakes. It's 15 LSAT retakes and tips or 15 LSAT retake strategies in 15 minutes. And I'll share the link to the recording here on YouTube if you want to check that out. But today, of course, my focus is on what can you do over the next 2 to 3 months going for the June and July LSATs. And my advice here might seem actually a little bit counterintuitive. My advice is take both of them. Take both no matter what. The reason is that LSAT scores have a kind of margin of error of 3.5 points on either end, meaning that you could get a 160 one day, a 157 another day, and a 164 the following day. And the LSAT is still considered a valid exam. So there's a bit of wiggle room on either end, meaning that let's say you take it in March or you take it in June and you get a 160. By doing nothing more than staying a bit fresh on the exam, maybe doing a timed exam per week, you could take it again in July and get a 164. And the 164, of course, will open many more doors than a 160 will. And it'll also give you a lot more scholarship money. You could get $5,000, $10,000 a year with that 164, or maybe even get a full ride to law school. That is not unheard of. I see it all the time, actually. Even a single point or two more on the LSAT can make an enormous difference. And that's crazy, of course, because there's this huge element of luck involved. But just taking another timed exam a week between the June and July LSATs, maybe you're doing that for maybe 3 hours a week, plus another 3 hours of reviewing, that alone could be enough. On the other hand, if you still have some foundational work to do, then I would suggest breaking your prep into 3 phases: accuracy, working untimed, then pacing with individual timed sections, and finally endurance with full-length 5-section timed exams. and you want to do a mix of games, reasoning, and reading comp all along the way. Maybe focus on one of those areas at a time, but still do the others to stay fresh on them. In addition, of course, you'll want to work on weak areas and detailed review. In my study plans, I break down exactly how to do this. I have detailed day-by-day study plans laying out exactly what to do, which pages in different prep books to read, which LSAT articles to read on my website, and then, of course, which specific LSAT problems to complete from given LSAT prep tests. So it might be read these pages in this LSAT textbook or read these pages in LSAT Super Prep, then read these specific articles on my site, and I'll give you the links to exactly those articles. Then complete these exact LSAT problems, either from exams 52 to 61 or from 62 to 71, and then doing the more recent exams in the 70s and 80s as full-length timed exams closer to test day. One other thing I'll recommend is that you save some of these exams from the 70s and 80s to do as full-length timed exams for your retake. So let's say you're going for June. You don't want to do everything from the 70s and 80s now because you want to save some of that time, some of those exams to do for the July LSAT prep. So definitely try to break it up here and there. People often ask, what is the difference between the week-by-week plans and the day-by-day plans? First off, the day-by-day plans are much more specific. I even would say that they're hyper-specific and overly specific, but I found in my experience that students really are looking for that level of detail, knowing exactly what to do. It's too easy to say, okay, well, there's 86 numbered exams. I'm just going to do them all in order from 1 to 86, or maybe I'll do the most recent 30, exam by exam by exam. But the LSAT is a whole mix of a variety of different things, a variety of different question types, a variety of different game types, and you want to break it down in a logical way. LSAC is mixing it all together, kind of scrambling the different types. But what I do is I systematize it. I say, okay, well, let's do ordering games first, then grouping games, then combination games. But even specifically within ordering games, let's do the easiest ordering games first. And before we start doing ordering games, let's actually learn the fundamentals of ordering games. Wouldn't that be helpful, right? So I lay out exactly what the foundational material is and then when to do which games in the process. And so eventually you will work through all the most recent 10, 20, 30 exams, depending on what your timeline's like. But that's the way to do it. I try to make it systematic and try to bring a method to the madness that is the LSAT. So I should actually show you what these LSAT schedules are. Here's a link to the schedules. There's the week-by-week ones there. There's the day-by-day ones there as well. And I even have a retake schedule or two for you as well if you want to actually orient your prep around focusing on your weak areas and you already feel that you have a strong foundation. One other thing you should know about the LSATs this summer is that the LSAT is going digital. So the June LSAT will be paper and pencil, but it'll be the last one that is fully paper and pencil. Starting in July, half of students will get the digital format, half will get paper and pencil, and LSAC chooses for you. And it would be kind of redundant for me to go over all the details on that now because I actually have, once again, a detailed YouTube playlist on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel where I break down the digital LSAT in detail, covering it from every angle and actually walking through what it looks like. So anyway, definitely check that out. One last thing I'll share with you as well is that I recently did an interview with a former NYU Law School admission officer, and a lot of folks found that helpful. So I'll include the link for you in the description for this episode as well, if you want to check that out. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything at all. I love hearing from students. You can email me personally at lsatunplugged@gmail.com. I read every single email myself. You can also follow me on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel at youtube.com/LSAT youtube.com/LSATblog. And then you can find the LSAT Unplugged podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. I also co-host the LSAT Pros podcast, so check that out as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. All the best and take care.